In this video, sponsored by Bidding Classics, it's the Jaguar XJ-S, the car that had the unenviable task of replacing the Jaguar E-Type. When this car was launched in 1975, I think it's fair to say that few loved the looks, but this is a car that matured well, experienced its biggest sales success in the mid to late 1980s, over 10 years after it was launched. So let's dig into the fascinating history of the Jaguar XJ-S. We might as well start here with one of the most discussed features, these buttresses with the sunk-in rear window. That's a nod to the fact that when Malcolm Sayer was sketching his designs for an E-Type replacement, the thinking was that it might be rear-engined. That ended up coming to naught, and it was much more closely aligned with the E-Type, with a similar independent rear suspension with inboard disc brakes and a whopping great V12 engine up at the front. Now, the final production car wasn't really the work of Malcolm Sayer. He sadly passed away before it reached production, so some design points like these rather curious rear lights were not anything to do with him. And there is a mishmash of styles. We've got curves and then really sharp angles, and that is a feature throughout the entire car. It is an unconventional car. Now, a quick identification for you. You can tell this is a V12 because the bonnet raises only very slightly in the middle. They actually later introduced a 6-cylinder version, initially 3.6 litres, later 4, and that had a more pronounced rise in the middle to clear the straight 6 engine. This being a V12, it sits very low. Notice also, we don't know if they work yet, pantograph headlamp wipers, the stuff dreams are made of. And obviously you've got the obligatory safety bumpers for the American market. That's why the E-Type was developed as a coupe, because it was thought it would be impossible to meet federal requirements for rollover protection with convertibles. See also TR7. They were wrong on both cases. So in this rather cramped engine bay, we find the 5.3 litre V12 engine, an absolute beauty of a unit, developed because the American market did not like 6-cylinder cars, and Jaguar had real troubles there. The V12s were much more popular. 5.3 litres, this is a later high efficiency version, which means in theory 18 mpg is possible. Maybe, just about. We've got electronic fuel injection, but the launch of the XJ-S was scuppered by Lucas Opus electronic ignition, an early form of engine management, which sadly just didn't work very well. And embarrassingly, some of the cars used at the launch in America refused to start. Now, one thing I do want to draw your attention to is the cruise control, which is operated by this bellows. I believe Ford used a similar technique. The distributor is down here, 12 leads coming off the busy little thing. So yeah, there's an awful lot crammed in here, but it makes for effortless, smooth power. A brief bit of windscreen wiper geekery, if you'll allow me. You would expect nothing less on this channel. The wipers always parked in front of the driver, apart from a couple of years, I think around 1991, when they did a tail end facelift, when the wipers parked in front of the passenger. They later swapped back right through to the end of production. And production did not end until 1997, sort of 20 odd years since the model's launch. It's a hugely successful car, just rather later in life than anyone expected. The interior of this example smells absolutely beautiful. It's done only 50,000 miles and everything just feels minty fresh. We've got a fly-off handbrake, which is a bit of a confusion for a lot of people. I'm just going to put the ignition on to help me make sure I turn it on correctly. There we go, so that's on, and then you pull up again and press the button off, and that's off. So that you must make sure the park brake light has gone off, or you can get very confused. Of course, got it in park at the moment on the automatic transmission. But yeah, it feels quite old-fashioned when you look at it, this dashboard, like it's out of another era. But nonetheless, these cars were still very, very popular. But you sit so very, very low, and there's quite a bit of wheel arch intrusion from the massive GM-sourced gearbox. Boot space is actually better than you might expect. We've got a full-size alloy wheel spare here in great condition. We've got the battery back here as well, so you can actually, I'll just make sure you can get your golf clubs in here. We've even got some inner arch covers and things that aren't actually required at this stage, but someone has bought them just in case. Here we go then, we'll fire up the enormous V12 engine. You don't get the because there are so many cylinders. It's a really smooth turbine feel. I hope you'll apologise for me having the heater on. It is absolutely freezing. But windscreen wiper test is going to be required. And there we go. Massive overlap, a very old school sort of a pattern really. And then when we turn the wipers off, they park down at the bottom of the screen. Problem with the wipers parking the other way is that they sweep the water in front of you and it then blows up the windscreen. So I think that's probably why they reverted. But yeah, not really anywhere for my clutch foot, so tight is the engine bay. But I will turn that off. And I've got a bit of warmth in the cabin, just so you can better hear the noise, of which there is not very much. Pull out gently because quite slippy around here, but second gear. And that's 60 miles an hour with the minimum of fuss. We barely got above 3,000 revs. It's only a 3-speed transmission, but a very smooth, effective one. And there's a little bit of whine in first gear, which probably takes me back. It reminds me of my Ford Fairmont AU from Australia, to be honest. It has the same sort of whirring noise going on. But really, these were all about effortless pace, but backed up by the fact that being a Jaguar, the handling is sublime. The steering's a bit too light, really. It always was on Jaguars. They went for minimum of fuss. Let's go down here and see what we find. Lots of straight roads around here, irritatingly, when you want to drive a car and demonstrate some of what it's got. Yeah, I'm barely touching the throttle and we're doing 60 miles an hour. That's what they're like, and it's a really uneven road. But the ride, well, you know, it is a little firmer than the XJ40, the equivalent saloon of this time. You would not describe it as crashy or really all that firm at all. It's very composed. Got that unique Jaguar rear suspension consisting of a solid fixed diff. Oh, there's some really broken road for you floating over. And then 2 shock absorbers and springs per side. So there's a total of 4 of them at the back, giving this uncanny ride and excellent control when it comes to cornering. So despite the fact it does feel a little bit dated, even by the standards of the time, the driving experience is why people bought these cars. Oh, it's 40 miles an hour in first. And 3,500 revs. We're doing the speed limit in second. Yeah, that is some serious shove. These are beautiful cars. I've spent a lot of time driving a 6-cylinder one, if you look back on my channel, and yeah, they're all incredible. But the 6-cylinders, I was averaging at times 26 miles to the gallon in that car. Yeah, I mean, we just went over quite the crest there, and it just kind of floated over it. These are uncanny cars, and when you point one down a twisty road, they're just delightful. They corner with an agility you just don't expect. It's why it's so fitting to call them big cats. But it's a really comfortable position apart from that cramped footwell. This is a lovely example. It's got 50,000 miles on the clock. It's done no mileage at all, really. And it's also testament to these cars, but when they finally did replace them with the XK8, the XK8 really was just a mildly updated XJ-S. They didn't change an awful lot from that platform. Why would you? It's already so very good. That helps this car have a proper timeless quality. Now, this car is fresh into Bidding Classics. It isn't even on the website yet at the time of writing. So if you would like to find out more, do head to the Bidding Classics website. Link will be in the description below. But yeah, this is really not, the interior is lovely. It's not perfect, a couple of little marks on that carpet. There's a tiny little rust spot on the boot. But the fundamentals of this car is it is really nice. It just feels like a brand new XJ-S, in all honesty. Got the multifunction computer here, which can give us things like fuel economy. We're currently averaging 1.6, it reckons. Nice. What's the average? 4.5 is the average since the last time that was reset. Yikes. Yeah, these things do like a drink. So there we go, that is the 1987 Jaguar XJ-S V12. What an absolute beauty. Tested here at Bidding Classics. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget you can head to the Hubnut store should you wish to acquire lovely merchandise. And I shall see you in a future video. Farewell.